Today is August 19th, which is World Photography Day, the day in which the daguerreotype photographic process received its patent in France. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about the evolution of photography. And I say evolution because photography was not a single invention, it was a series of discoveries that evolved over time. So to track how photography evolved, we have to go all the way back to the 15th century, where artists used a device called the camera obscura, also known as the pinhole camera. The pinhole camera was a dark room with a tiny pinhole that inverted anything that was placed in front of it. So if you place your pinhole camera in front of a beautiful landscape, you would get the inverted image of that landscape projected on the display of the pinhole camera. So artists would actually trace on top of this display and they would get drawings. So this was basically an artist device that people used to trace. Now fast forward to 1829, we have Joseph Nicephore Niepce. Joseph Nicephore Niepce was a French scientist who took the camera obscura, and inside the camera obscura he placed an asphalt. The asphalt was called the bitumen de Judea. The bitumen Judea was an asphalt that hardens in proportion to the amount of light that hits it. So he placed this asphalt inside the camera obscura, and he placed the camera obscura by his window. And after 8 hours of exposing, he got the first ever successfully produced image called the view from the window at La Grasse. This was a revolutionary discovery, but it was not ready to be given out to the public because it took 8 hours to expose. He needed to make the exposure time smaller. He named this photographic process heliography. So he took the heliography photographic process and he went to a French artist and chemist called Louis Daguerre. Louis Daguerre partnered with Joseph Nicephore Niepce, and they both worked on making heliography a more sustainable and more efficient process. Joseph Nicephore Niepce, he passed away on July 5th of 1833, leaving Louis Daguerre to work on the invention alone. Louis Daguerre, he came up with his own photographic process called the daguerreotype. The daguerreotype consisted of silver iodide on a copper plate, and this had far lesser exposure time and created a much sharper image. It took him only 10 to 30 minutes to create an image compared to Joseph Nicephore Niepce that took him 8 hours to expose an image. Now, this photographic process, which he named after himself, the daguerreotype, this received its patent on August 19, 1839, and this became World Photography Day. Now, 2 years later, in 1841, an inventor from England called William Henry Fox Talbot, he was working on his own photographic process. He called this the calotype. Now, the calotype, it wasn't as effective as the daguerreotype in the sense that the images weren't as clear. But the calotype was a revolutionary invention because the calotype produced the photographic negative. Now, if you don't know what the negative is, basically with the negative you can create multiple copies. With the daguerreotype you can create only one image, and if you want to take another image you have to shoot another image. But with the calotype we can take multiple copies because it created the negative. Now the daguerreotype and the calotype, they were both awesome photographic processes. People like you and me, we couldn't do it easily. We had to go to a daguerreotype studio and get our picture taken there, and it would have been a very expensive and a very time consuming process. So it was not accessible to us. But then fast forward a few years later, in the late 1800s, we got Kodak. George Eastman Kodak. He brought in the Kodak camera and he made it public. He made it public to the people. So amateur photography came to the picture. How cool is that? Imagine taking pictures on your own for the first time ever. Like, we take it for granted nowadays because we have our phones and these digital cameras. But imagine having this Kodak camera for the first time. You get to take your own pictures. That was really cool, and that made Kodak skyrocket to one of the top photographic companies in the world. But then they didn't hold their position for long. What goes up has to come down eventually, right? So as more people were getting into film photography and Kodak was growing, the shift began to happen. The switch was from film cameras to digital cameras. As digital cameras began to hit the market, people felt that digital photography was a much more convenient medium of photography than film photography. They felt that film photography is a very expensive medium. You have to keep buying the film, you have to keep sending it back to get processed, and it's a constant expense. But digital photography, on the other hand, you just have to have a memory card, you have to have a digital camera, and you can take as many images as you like, and you can delete the images. But Kodak, they denied this change. They felt that people were not going to switch to digital cameras. They felt that people were going to keep using film cameras, and they kept producing film cameras without making the switch. They didn't adapt to the changing market, and because of that Kodak as a company collapsed and they filed for bankruptcy. Today we see another evolution of photography. We see artificial intelligence coming into the picture. We have generative fill and other softwares that create your own images by the correct prompts. Now if you don't know how to adapt, if you don't adapt with this market, just like Kodak, if we fail to adapt, we are going to fail as well, we are going to collapse as well. So it's very important for us to adapt according to a changing market and learn from the story of Kodak. I'm very excited to see where photography goes from here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I wish all of you a happy World Photography Day. I will see you guys in the next one.